RJF Makes, and if you've tuned in today, you'll be wanting to make one of the Queeny bag from the bag pattern that is on my website, which is www.rjfmakes.com. It can be either a digital download or a paper pattern. Now this pattern has got 3 bags on the cover, but actually it's only 2 bags, and then the 2 small ones have 2 types of different closures as a finish. So I'm going to do all 3 bags and all the different closures and stuff like that in the demo today. However, I'm going to be doing like it not in order of the pattern. So let's talk a bit about the pattern and then I'll explain how I'm going to do this. Right, so the pattern is quite fully self-explanatory. It's very beginner friendly, this pattern. Tells you everything you need on the second page in and on the back of the pattern. That's if you've got the paper pattern. If you've got the digital pattern, it would be on the second page. And then basically you've got your cutting out for your small. Now your cutting out for your small, these measurements, these parts here, this part here, is only for 1 small bag. If you're making the 2 small bags with this 2 different closures, you need to repeat this twice. Then you've got the large bag, which is this section here. Then obviously I've only given you 1 type of closure for the large bag, and so you only really need to cut that out once. The whole point of this pattern is that you can identify how to do different closures and probably move it onto the large one or to the small one. It's totally up to you. It's for you to make the bags just your style of what you want it to look like. So there's a bit about preparing the fabric, and then the pattern starts off with making the large bag. Now the large bag is quite a lengthy process on here. So it goes to this page here. So there's about 10 to 11 pages there of how to make the large bag. The reason why that is because, and this is where the video is going to come into effect, where I'm going to do it in stages. Most of the processes are the same within the bags. However, there's a few added processes or different measurements within the bags, and basically the construction's exactly the same, apart from like the flaps and where to put the press locks or the magnetic snaps. That's the only bits that are different, apart from the large one has also got an inside zip pocket and a shoulder strap, and the 2 small ones have got wrist straps. So when I make the flap, I'm going to make the flap for all 3 bags at the same time, and then I'm going to, when we come to attach the piece of hardware that connects to the flap from the body, which is, so we make the flaps together, and then when we come to add this part here, or the part of the magnetic snap on the small one, I will do all those 3 body parts together. Okay, so that's the pattern. Like I say, it's quite self-explanatory, it's very beginner friendly, and it's for those who want a quick make. For instance, if you're going out for a party or a wedding or something and you need a matching bag, this is the pattern for you. Right, so if you have brought the paper pattern, you will get a large sheet, which is a pull-out sheet, and you'll need to cut out all the templates. If you have brought the digital pattern, the digital pattern will have, on the very first template page, will have a square in the left-hand corner. My motto is always print out that first template page first, measure that square. If that square measures 1 inch, go ahead, print off the rest of the pattern. If that square does not measure 1 inch all the way around, 1 inch, then you need to basically go back into your printer settings, make sure it's at 100% or actual size, the printer settings and then go to print again. And then basically once you've printed out, make sure you measure that square again. And then make sure it's 1 inch. Now if you have any problems, please don't hesitate, drop a comment below or private message me, or my how to contact me is on the very first page with inside the pattern. Now I'm not going to go through all the cutting out, it's actually really self-explanatory, the cutting out. This video is mainly just for construction, however I just will talk through some pieces. Right, okay, so they've all got like large or small, or mini shall we say, we've called it the mini. The main outer body has its own piece, so for instance there's the mini, that's the main outer body piece. Then the main body piece, lining piece, is actually got a second piece. Now you'll find that it is smaller. That's for the simple reason is we're trying to cut out bulk and bagginess with inside the bag. So don't be alarmed. Now if you did accidentally cut out your lining out of this one as well, that's no problem. However, it will be a bit baggy inside. And that goes for the main bag outer for the large, as well as the main bag for the lining. As you can see, there is a way difference in height. It's just obviously we've cut out the bagginess for you. Now I'm just going to talk about the flap of the large one. Now as you saw previously on that finished bag, there was a U shape on the flap. That isn't, you don't actually have to do that if you don't want to. The flap has actually got a base, which is this part here, and then we do the U shape. So it's totally up to you if you want to do the U shape on the bag pattern itself. You can just stick to one type of flap. However, the U shape, if you've got a featured fabric that's got quite a large embellishment or something that could go in the U shape here, this area here, go ahead, do it, because it gives it a different style, different element. Now with the U shape, it says place on fold. Now if you are using like PU, like I am in this pattern, in this demo, or cork or whatever, my motto is on the wrong side of your fabric, draw around this part here and down here, then flip this over, match it up to where that drawn line was, where that centre bit is, and draw around it, then cut it out, then cut out what you've drawn on your fabric. Now if you're using a woven fabric, which you can use, fold your fabric, pop this onto the fold of the fabric and then cut out, and then once you've opened it out you will have a U shape. I'm just going to talk you a bit through what fabrics I'm using so you can understand what I've done. And with the interfacing, the stabilisers, i.e. the fusible fleece, the foam and the Decaville, I'm just basically going to tell you which ones I've done, put Decaville on or the foam or the fusible fleece as I go along, because my patterns all have interfacing, most parts have interfacing on. Okay, so as you can see I've got one small, two smalls and one large. Now like I said, I'm already going to be doing the two smalls because I want to show you the two different closures, and then I've got the large. Now with the large version I'm using a different press lock from what is listed in mentioned in the pattern. There's a reason that I'm using a different one, is because there is some different styles out in the market. This one here is like a screw in. I will be demonstrating how to do the screw in one on the small, one of the small bags anyway. So there is no point in me doing two press locks that have got screws. So I've done a screw press lock on this one, which is the same principle as this one. But this one is where we pop some glue in the channel and squeeze it. I just want to show you there is different types of press locks out there with different ways of installing them. In the pattern, it gives you all the screw press lock information, so how to screw it in, put some glue in and stuff like that. So this is another reason why I wanted to do the squeeze the teeth together. This one here is going to be the magnetic snap with the corner protector. This one here is going to be the mini press lock that's got a some screws to attach it to, and then this is the press lock, which is the squeeze press lock. Now you'll notice that this one has got one D-ring and one swirl clasp, and same with this one, and this one has two swirl clasps and two D-rings. These two have a wrist strap, which you can just carry it on your wrist. This one has a over the shoulder strap. Okay, I'm just going to quickly run through what I've got loaded in my sewing machine. For instance, I will have my zipper foot on when I implement putting a zip in for the large bag. However, I either or use a Teflon foot, which is already loaded on my machine. I'm using a Janome HD9 and my machine takes a Teflon foot as well as a walking foot. However, I prefer my Teflon foot. A Teflon foot is it's so it doesn't stick to any fabrics as it's going along. If you aren't using like a machine like mine, which is a heavy duty machine, and you're using a home domestics, these bags can still be made on a domestic sewing machine. My motto is to use a walking foot. Now a walking foot is like this. Some walking foots are different. I'm just going to show you the basic walking foot. This hooks onto the needle screw, and then basically it, as you can see, the feet here are moving up and down. It means that the feed dogs at the bottom of the on the actual sewing machine and the feed dogs on this can grab the fabric and bring it through like this. So it's doing this motion. It's not pushing down too much onto the actual fabric. With bag making, it's a must either have a Teflon foot or a walking foot, because you do get some bulky areas. The other thing that I'm going to be using is, well, I'm going to show you the thread that I'm using, which is a Tex 40 thread. This is a polyester strong thread, but some domestic machines won't use this. So if you have got a domestic sewing machine, you need a polyester thread, something like Gutermann Sew All thread or Scanfil polyester thread that I sell on my shop. It just means it's got a bit of elasticity for when you're turning the bag right way out, or when you've got your bag overfilled and it's on your shoulder. It means the thread will stretch slightly so it won't snap. Please do not use cotton fabric, thread on any bag making, because what you will find is, and I've done this in the past when I first started, my shoulder strap was a perfect example on a bag, is I overfill my bags as it is. It was heavy, and the actual thread on the crossbody strap had snapped in intervals. That's because I used an Aurifil thread. Aurifil thread or cotton thread isn't ideal for bag making. They're great for like sort of craft projects, i.e. quilting and stuff. The last thing my advice is to use a strong needle. So I'm using a universal needle, and I'm using a size 16, so that's a 116 needle. The stronger the needle, the better it is for your sewing machine, and it will help any bulky areas. There is going to be tools along the process, and I will explain those as I go along when I'm making that certain part of the bag. Right, so we're going to make the flap of all three bags. So I've got one of my small flaps, the other small flap, and I'm showing you that it can be done in different fabrics. So this is PU, as it's got a nice sheen to it. And then this is normal fabric, normal cotton fabric. Then I have the large flap. So we're going to work from here to here to here first. So we're going to build the first flap. So I'm going to start off with this one. And we're going to work along doing the magnetic snap finish. And that's the one with the corner protector. So you'll need your magnetic snap with its washers. So you should have 2 washers and 2 parts to a magnetic snap. So you got one with a inverted dimple and one with a dimple. The one with the dimple is actually the male part of the snap, and the one with the inverted dimple, which is mainly normally the chunkier side, that's the female side. We're going to need the male part, which is the slimmer side, and 1 washer to start off with, and we're going to pop the magnetic snap of the female to one side. Right, so you should have your lining and your outer, your main outer. If I flip those over, you will see how I've stabilised them. So the first one, the lining fabric, has only got medium weight iron-on interfacing, and then the main outer has got iron-on interfacing on the back, and then fusible fleece, and then like it says in the actual cutting out section is I've trimmed it back 1/4 of an inch or just over 1/4 of an inch all the way around. You need that free so it helps with the less of the bulky, it's to stop all the bulkiness happening in the seams and you struggling. So that's how I've stabilised them. So we're going to pop the main part to one side and work on the actual flap. Now I'm not going to give you any measurements. The measurements were in the pattern, and I'm just going to show you what pages I'm actually working on so you know what the imagery looks like. So this is the page that we're working on at the moment. We need to fold this in half. And crease. So you kind of can work out where the centre is. Then you're going to measure up. And mark. Okay, so I've got a mark there. You're going to get your washer, and your washer has a hole in the centre and 2 slits. You're going to pop that hole over that mark. And draw in those 2 slits. So you should be left with marking looking like this. Where those 2 slits are, you're going to cut into those 2 slits. So I'm just using a scalpel kind of blade. Don't cut past those slits. Because that'll make the holes too big. Then you're going to need some fray check or some fray stop, depending on your brand. And just pop that over those 2 slits that you've just cut out. Let that soak in a little bit. While that's soaking up, you need to get some like some fusible fleece or something to pad out the next step. So I'm just going to grab some fusible fleece. Okay, while that's still setting, I'm just going to fold that in half and cut 2 slits. 2 little slits in that. Okay, so you're going to get your male part of the snap and pop that through those 2 slits that we just made. And bring the prongs out to the back. You're going to get that piece of fleece, pop that over the 2 prongs where we've done those marks, and pop the washer over the prongs. And then you're just going to either bend it out or in, totally up to you. I've got no preference myself. And that is it. Now you can cover up this if you want to. I'm going to cover it up. I've got some tape that I'm going to use to slightly cover it up. What you've got to make sure though, because the seam allowance is here, you can't get the tape in that seam allowance. So I'm just going to put a little bit in. So I just need a little bit just to cover up that back area. That'll stop it from ripping through to your lining. Then you're going to get your main outer, pop this right side down. So that's right side to right side. And you're going to clip all the way around. Okay, so that one's done. I'm just going to pop that to one side. So that's the one with the magnetic snap and the corner protector. I'm now going to show you the small flap with the small press lock. So you've got your main outer and your lining fabric. Same process of the stabilizers. You've got your interfacing on both pieces on the wrong side. And then you've got your fusible fleece on the main outer. This one, we are not going to put any pieces of hardware on, and we're just going to pop them right sides together and clip down the two sides and the triangle part of the flap. Move that over a bit. So. Okay, so we're going to take both of these to my sewing machine. Now you've got to remember the seam allowance for this whole bag is, for all these bags, is 1/4 inch, unless I state otherwise. So that's 1/4 inch. So we are going to sew 1/4 inch starting up here, reverse our stitches and go down, up and up here, and reverse our stitch at the end. We're not going to sew these two straight edges. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn 1/4 inch all the way around both pieces. Now you need to trim back the seam allowance, or if you've got pinking shears, use those. So I'm just going to trim back mine. I'm trimming mine back by half. I'm going to do that for both flaps. Okay, as I've done both flaps together, I'm going to just show this process at the same time on both flaps. So you turn them right side facing out, going up through the straight edge at the top, and you get like a chopstick or something and poke out those corners. So that's number one. If you've used a PU or a cork, you might find it a bit trickier to push out, but it will go. this is PU, so this has gone out quite easily. Okay, so you're going to have to give those a press. Now, because I've used PU, I cannot press from this side. I have to press from the lining side, which is cotton fabric. If you've used PU or cork on your main outer fabrics, please do not press on that side. Press it onto the wrong side, which is obviously your lining side. I'm just using a woolen presser mat with a piece of wood underneath so it protects my cutting board, and a strong iron, and I've got steam in it as well. So that's that one. Okay, so the process is the same on the next step for both of these, so I'm going to do them together. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge using a stitch length number 4. However, if you're not comfortable at doing 1/8 of an inch away, do 1/4 of an inch away. It's totally up to you. And then I'll meet you back. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and top stitched as close as I prefer originally see. So I'm just over 1/8 of an inch away on both of those. So the magnetic snap one, which is the one with the rose, which has got the magnetic snap male part, I'm just going to work on that one at the moment. So you should, now this is not needed if you don't want to go down this road, but you've got a corner protector. It has 2 screw holes here which have 2 micro screws. This will go over that edge there to basically stop. What happens is if you don't put something heavy on the end of the corner, eventually with a magnetic snap it will curl up. So this will stop it from curling up. So let me just get all the bits that I need and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've got a magnetic screwdriver which fits, now these are really tiny, which fits these tiny little screws here. The reason why I've got a magnetic one is it's just so it's easier for me to actually pick up. So you've got 2 screws, and the screws have got pokey points at the end, which means that it'll screw through the fabric. I've obviously got the corner protector, and then I've got a solvent glue which is Gutermann HT2 glue. I'm just going to clarify that. Yeah, HT2 glue. Right, so the first thing you're going to do is get your solvent glue, and you've got a channel in the actual corner bit here in the middle. You're just going to pop a few drops in there. You're not going to overly do it. Okay. In an ideal world you will let that dry, but however you can carry on doing this. When I say let it dry, I mean let it go tacky. However, we can just go ahead and do this part anyway, and it will just carry on going tacky. So you're going to pop that over the corner, and that's the right side facing up, so that's not the screw hole side. The screw hole side need to be on the lining side. And then we're just going to pick up our screws one by one and screw them in. Screw them as tight as you can get them. and then that's punctured a hole into your fabric, it means that it's not going to come out. And same with the other one. Okay, and it should look something like that once finished. Can't come off, and once that glue's set, it really cannot come off. So we're going to pop the magnetic snap one to one side, and then we're just going to move over to the miniature press lock one. So I'll just talk a bit about the press lock. So the press lock will have 2 micro screws, which I just showed you on the corner one, which are there. Then you will have a washer that looks like this. You're going to pop this to one side because we're not working on that part at the moment. Then you should have a little miniature lock. This is a 3/4 inch lock. And then it should have a press button here, and this is your male part and this is your female part. Your female part has got a collar on. That normally goes onto the actual main bag, so we're going to pop that to one side with the washer. We're going to work with the male part. The male part has got the press button, which is the front of the lock, and then on the back of the lock it's got 2 little holes at the top. That's where the screws go in. We're going to work with this one first. Right, so you've got another channel here. You need to pop some glue inside that one. Just a little. Ideal world, you'll let that go tacky as well. Let a little bit just come out then. Okay, with the right side facing up of the lock and the right side facing up of the actual flap, you're going to push this into that channel. As far as it will go. Now you've got to bear in mind it won't go that far because that channel isn't that deep. Okay, so that's in. We're going to flip this over and, like before, pop the 2 screws in. I don't think I've actually picked up the right screws here, but I'll have a look. My screws are quite long. They should be half the size of this. Now if that's the case, I will go and grab the actual screws that should go with this. Yeah, so these aren't the right screws. Your lock will come with screws. However, because I sell these locks and I have different screw pots to pick out the screws to go with these locks for the customers, I've picked the wrong ones. So I'm just going to show you what's happening with mine. As you can see, the screws should lie flat against the back of the press lock male part, and they're sticking out. So I'm now going to just take these screws out off camera and put some new ones in. Right, so I've gone ahead and popped the right screws in, and as you can see, they're lying flat against the back now. So now we're going to pop those 2 small flaps for the mini clutch wallets to one side, and we're going to work on the large one. So the large one, we're going to be working on this part here. Okay, so with the large one, you should have, if you're doing the U shape, which I am, you should have your contrast fabric cut out with medium weight interfacing fused onto the wrong side. Then you should have either a lining or main outer piece of fabric. There is nothing fused onto the wrong side of this one, and that's the U shape. And then you should have your main outer fabric and your lining fabric, and that's the main flap part. Now if you're doing the main flap part, just ignore this part of the tutorial of making the flap. However, I'm going to show you this as well. Right, so on the main outer, just like the others, you should have your medium weight interfacing and your fusible fleece. Now if you are doing the U shape, you need to do this next step. If you're not doing the U shape, you don't need to do this next step. So I've got my lining fabric. I've gone ahead, and you need to definitely do this whether you're doing the U shape or not, fuse interfacing to the wrong side. However, because I'm doing the U shape, I've done Deckerville Light in the centre. Now Deckerville Light is mentioned in the actual cutting out section. It does say it's needed, but I've written the instructions as people were going to make this U shape as well. If you are one of those people that don't like the U shape, don't worry about it. Just don't do the Deckerville. But the Deckerville Light is fused to the wrong side into the centre, and you've got quite a reasonable gap all the way around. So I'm going to pop these two parts to one side, and we're just going to work on the U shape first. So with the U shape contrast outer, right side facing up, and then the U shape lining fabric, wrong side facing down, we're going to match up the centre U shape. Okay, so you're going to, and I'm going to go from this side here, which is the contrast wrong side. So that's the main bit that you're going to see on the U shape. I'm going to sew 1/4 inch just around this, reverse my stitches at the start and at the end. So I've sewn 1/4 inch all the way around. I noticed my cutting out of the lining U shape was slightly off, so I went by the edge of the PU, which is my contrast U shape. I've done a stitch length 2.5 on my sewing machine as well. Okay, so where these corners are here, we're going to have to snip it in to the seam allowance. So I'm just going to snip it into the seam allowance at about 1/4 inch apart. If you're wondering what the snips are, they're viscous thread snips, but I find I can get precision with these into corners. A bit more. Just do this edge here. Okay, so I've gone ahead and snipped that, so basically it should be like this. You're going to get the lining piece, and we need to bring it to the wrong side of your main contrast fabric. Now, if you've used a woven, you can go ahead and press this. Because I haven't used a woven on my contrast, I'm going to have to use something called quilter's tape or wash away tape, and I'm just going to have to run some quilter's tape along this edge here. And what we're going to do is essentially bring the lining part to this side and stick it into place, because we can't press it. peel off the backing tape from the tape. Don't use normal double-sided sticky tape when you're sewing, because if you sew over that double-sided sticky tape and it's not like a wash away or a quilter's tape, it means that it can gunk up your sewing machine needle and it can get into your electronics parts in the sewing machine. A wash away tape and a quilter's tape can be sewn through because it's not harmful to the sewing machine. Right, so we're going to flip this over, and then we're just going to bring this line in, roll this seam here and stick it into place onto the wrong side. And to help me out, I'm just going to pop a clip on this side here. Okay, so you should have a neat rolled edge in the centre. You're going to go to your sewing machine, use a stitch length 3.5 or to 4, and I'm going to top stitch 3/8, that's 3/8 of an inch away from this edge here, and I'm going to just do that all the way around. As you can see, I've top stitched 3/8 of an inch away around. I'm just going to remove those clips. Now we're going to flip this over and we're going to trim back just this lining piece to about 1/8 of an inch away from that sewn line. So the reason why we did this lining piece is to give ourselves a neat finish around the inner U-tube. And the reason why we're trimming it back is so we're cutting away some of the bulk for when we pop the this onto the actual main flap. So you're going to get your main flap piece, that's the one with the fusible fleece, and then your U-shape. On the wrong side of the U-shape, now we are going to pop all quilter's tape onto the back on the wrong side. I like to do some on either side of the U-shape. You essentially don't want this flap to move around on this next step, so you do need to add a fair bit of quilter's tape to the edges. Okay, so you need to peel off all the backing tape off all of that. Okay, with the main outer flap right side facing up and the U-shape right side facing up and wrong side facing to the flap, you're now going to pop this, matching up the outer edges. I lightly stick down, but I don't fully stick down to start off with. So, as you can see, I've kind of got the flower in the centre. That's the whole point of the U-shape, is so you've got a little bit of a frame to make a feature out of the fabric. Now I'm just going to stick that down. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is actually attach the U-shape to the main outer fabric of the flap. So we've top stitched on the U-shape 3/8 of an inch away from the inner edge. From the inner edge now, we are going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, or as close as we can. You basically want just an even double stitched row around here. I'm going to use a stitch length number 4 because I use a stitch length number 4 on here, so it gives me an even look. And then I'm just going to reverse some stitches at the start and at the end. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done my second row of top stitching. Just like the previous ones, we're going to get the lining fabric, pop that right side facing down onto your main, clip all the way around. Then we're going to sew 1/4 inch, making sure you reverse your stitches at the start and at the end, just on the curve. Then I'm going to cut my curve excess seam allowance away by half. Turn it right side facing out, poking out the curve corner. Give it a press, but I'm pressing it from the lining side. And then I'm going to attach my my lock. So I'll meet you back when I come to attach my lock. Right, as you can see, I've gone around and top stitched as well once I've pressed it to the right side. Now I pressed it from this side of the flap. So we're going to work on the press lock. Just like before, your press lock has got 3 parts. Let me just undo that bit. So you've got the male part, which is the one with the press lock. You've got your female part, which is the one with the collar. You're going to pop that to one side, and then you've got your washer. You're going to pop that to one side. I'm just going to work on this one to start off with. Now the difference between this one than the one that's listed in the pattern, the one in the pattern is a lot like this one but on a larger scale, which has got 2 screws. This one here has no screws. If I can just show you inside, there is some little teeth inside. We have to push this down. Once we've put some glue in and we push this on, we have to push this down, squeeze it, and these teeth embed into the fabric, and then it can't pull out. So once again, you're going to need your glue, and on this one you'll notice there's some holes at the back. You can't put the glue straight into the channel. Your glue needs to go in the inside, but on this side of it, so it's on the flatter side. You're just going to do a few drops. Like so. You're going to let that go tacky while we find the centre of this. So I know once my flap is finished, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 inches. 10 inches wide, so I'm going to go for the 5-inch mark on my mat. That's what I love about this viscous cutting mat. As I was saying before the battery ran out, that's why I love this viscous mat, because the squares in the centre of the viscous mat help me out on certain quilt blocks, obviously because of this, and also helps me, for instance, like on flaps and stuff, to find the centre. So my centre is the 5th mark. That should have gone a bit tacky now. So with the right side of the lock facing up, you kind of need to visualise where the centre is of this press lock and push that. I might need to really push it on. There you go. There you go, got it. Kind of trying to get it into the centre. So the centre of the press lock is in the centre of the number 5 inch. Yeah, once you're happy where the edge of the channel is, you're going to really push that down and flip it over and do the same on this side. And then I like to pull it so the teeth hook in, and it's hooked in here. Just, there you go. So that is not coming off that flap. Yeah, no, that tooth is now, I was having problems with this one tooth here. It wasn't actually going into the fabric, but it's now gone into the fabric. So you should have finished, if you're doing all 3 bags together, your 3 flaps for your 3 bags. Pop these to one side, and we're going to move on to the body parts where we put the bits which connect to the actual closures that we've chosen for the particular bag that we have. I've got the main outer body pieces for the ones that go with the actual flaps that I've chosen. Each body piece has fusible interfacing on, so onto the wrong side there is medium weight woven, medium weight interfacing, non-woven I've used. And then each piece has also got fusible fleece on the wrong side, which has been trimmed back all the way around. So we're going to work on the large one first. I'm just going to pop the two small ones to one side. I like to have my flap handy, just so I can visualise that's exactly where I want it to fall, the press lock. So we are going to work on this page here. I'm not going to give any measurements out, it's all in the pattern. Okay, so first of all, in the pattern, the washer in the instructions is different. It's a rectangle with loads of little holes in it and squares. My washer has three bits that are indented out, cut out of the washer, and means that the prongs can go. Just means that the prongs can fit around those, and then you push the prongs in on this one. We need to visualise where the centre is of this. So you can go ahead and measure it. So you measure top to bottom, find the centre, and then do exactly the same this end to find the definite centre. I'm personally going to eyeball the centre for when it comes to here. So I'm just going to pop a mark onto the actual washer. I personally like to use a permanent marker because it just means that I can identify where it is. So that is there. Now if you kind of look, what I actually did is I got 4 squares on my cutting mat, which are inch squares. I made sure there was equal amount either side, top and bottom, and on the two sides I used the cross, and then I've just basically popped a mark in the centre. So that is my centre. Okay, so you're going to find the centre bottom of your main outer piece, and I personally like to snip into mine, so match up the edges, and I'm just snipping in 1/8 of an inch. Then from the centre bottom you need to measure up the measurement that's mentioned in the pattern and mark. Okay, that's my centre. Then you're going to get your washer, whichever type of washer you have. You're going to pop the centre of your washer over that centre mark. So I'm going to eyeball it. That's about right. And then where the prongs will fit through on that washer, you need to draw through those slits or through those cutouts, so just like so, and peel it off. Perfect. And then once again you're going to cut into those slits. Now you can use a Stanley knife, but don't cut past those slits. If you have used woven fabric, you'll need fray stop or fray check. Because I've used a non-woven fabric and it's a plastic fabric, I don't need to use fray check. I'm going to get the female part of your press lock, the collar should be close to the top. You should have a larger space at the bottom, so this collar should be closer to that top rather than the bottom, and you're just going to pop that in. If you find your holes are not big enough, just go again and cut back into those holes. I've found that I've pushed out my prongs a bit too much. Right. You can go ahead and go and pad this out, but my prongs are not that long. If you find your prongs are sticking out quite far, go ahead, pop a fusible fleece on top. However, mine's not sticking out that far. I'm just going to pop the washer over, and whether yours is an innie or an outie, push those prongs into the centre or out. Now we need to just stick something over that to stop it from coming apart or ripping the lining fabric. Okay, then you're going to flip it over and just test your flap into it. That's brilliant. That's perfect for me, that is. So we're just going to pop this to one side and move over to the Press Lock Small Mini Clutch. So we are going to work on this page here. However, you've got two images. One image, the first image is for your magnetic snap, which is for this one here. We're not going to do that. And then this one is for this one here. So we're going to work on this image here and this instruction here. Right, okay. So this time, rather than finding the centre bottom, we need to find the centre top and snip it into that centre. Then you're going to measure down, mark the centre. Just like the washer before, I have no centre mark. So I need to visualise where that centre is, and I'm going to pop a mark on that. So my centre is right there. You're going to get your washer, pop that centre mark over that centre mark, visualise, make sure it's perfectly in the centre. And then you're just going to draw two lines in those slit lines. And then where those two drawn slit lines are, you're going to cut in. You need fray check if you have used woven fabric, but like I've used a plastic leaf fabric, a PU, don't need fray check. Once again, the collar needs to be pointing up, close to the top, and push those two prongs through. Okay. Now my prongs are alright, they're not that large on this one, so I'm just going to pop the washer over the top and close this off. Just make sure that's all the way down. Okay, and then I'm just going to stick something over the top. Sorry, I couldn't push down the wrong prong very well with my fingers, so if you have that problem, as long as you close it off as much as you can, flip it over and push down. It will push down the prongs even more for you. And stick that over the top. Once again, just pop that down, pop your flap into there and just make sure it's fine. Yep. Right, so we're going to just pop that to one side. Okay, moving on to the magnetic snap one. So you should have your female part of the magnetic snap and the washer. Measuring down from the top, find that centre first. And then you're going to measure down. So I like to put that on a vertical line and measure down. Because my washer's got a hole in the centre, I'm just going to pop that over my mark, which I've lost. Couldn't see that mark, so I'm just going to mark it in a blue. There you go, I can see it now. Going to pop that over, and you're going to draw on those two slits like before. Then you're going to cut into those two slit marks that you've just drawn on. Now if you find that you've used woven fabric, you need to use fray stop or fray check. Because I've used a plastic substance again, I don't need to use it. You're going to get the magnetic snap part, prongs going through the front. Flip it over. If you need to pad that out, go ahead and pad it out, but I don't need to. Get your washer and pop that over the prongs. For magnetic snaps, I always push the prongs outwards. I don't know why, it's something that I've had in my head for years, and I've just done that from ages. And then just pop some tape over the top, and then what should happen is when you clip that into place. Okay, so I've just noticed that I've got a bit of an error on my press lock, the one press lock that I've used here. With the measurement within the pattern, it's made my flap stick out really high up compared to this one. Now it should overhang by 1 1/8 or an inch from the body to the edge of this flap. If that is the case, measure, get it all straight on your mat, then measure 1 inch and then trim off any excess. Don't know what happened with this press lock, but the measurements that I've written in the pattern are for this type of press lock, but however I've just checked, the prongs are slightly different, and it means that the press lock should have come down just a little bit further, and it should have come to about here. So if that's the case, it's no biggie of trimming the flap back, as long as you're not trimming it back way too much. So I've trimmed off about 1 inch of my flap if you're doing the small mini with the press lock. But like I say, you need at least 1 inch overhang with approximately 1 inch overhang of the flap from the body to the flap edge. That's an error on my behalf regarding, there is totally different press locks out there. So just bear that in mind. Use that as your decision, so it should overhang about that much. Okay, so the next things you're going to need is your other main outer body piece, which should have interfacing on the wrong side and then fusible fleece fused to the centre of the wrong side, and that should be for all for both the mini ones and for the large one. Then you should have your D-ring tabs. Now the D-ring tabs for the mini, you should only have one D-ring tab on each bag with one D-ring. And then for the large one, you've got 2 D-ring tabs and 2 D-rings. So I'm going to show you how to prepare the large one first. So I'm going to pop this to one side. Now my advice is, for your D-ring tabs, if you've used a PU for your main outer, front and back, use a woven tab for your D-rings. If you've used a woven fabric for your main outer, front and back, go ahead, you can use cork, you can use woven, you can use PU for your tabs. If you've used woven, you can press with an iron. If you have not used woven, you need to stick things into place. So on the back of all the tabs, I've done fusible interfacing, woven, fuse it interfacing, medium weight, and that's non-woven. I'm going to now just get my iron and turn that on. And then pop those wrong side facing up. And what we're going to do is bring the 2 long edges into the centre and press. Khaki-handed here. Okay. You're going to do that for both of these ones. Now if you have used a PU, what you need to do is run quilter's tape along the 2 long edges, peel off the backing and then stick them into the centre and not press. Okay, so I've got those 2 there and it should look like that. Going to feed your D-ring on and you're going to fold that over into the centre on the wrong side and then fold that over into the centre into the wrong side. But I'm going to run some quilter's tape on the back. So I'm just going to feed my D-ring onto both of those. Quilter's tape, there it is. So I'm just going to stick some quilter's tape there. And a little bit across the top. And same with this one here. Peel off the backing tape. Okay, so you're going to bring down the D-ring approximately 1 inch down, and then you're going to fold that first top bit over to the wrong side and stick into place. Okay. Then you're going to get the bottom edge and bring that up to that other raw edge. So it looks like that. And stick that into place. Now I like to pop a clip onto that so it doesn't come apart. So it should have 2 neat finish edges here and your 2 raw edges should meet into the centre on the wrong side. Just repeat that same process for the other D-ring tab. And then clip into place. Right, so you got those, and then just pop those to one side. You're going to get your main outer back piece and your main outer front piece. Unclip the flap, pop the flap to one side, pop these right sides together. And you're going to run clips down this edge and down this edge. We're not going to touch the two cut out corners. Match up the edges as well. Okay, so you're going to go to your sewing machine using a stitch length 2.5. Reverse your stitches at the start and at the end of every line. So we're going to start here. This is our first row of stitches. We're going to start here and finish down here. Make sure you reverse your stitches at the start and at the end. Then we're not going to sew this part here. Then you're going to sew, start from here, go over to the base, other side of the base. Reverse your stitches at the start and at the end. Then you're going to do exactly the same up this part here. Remember not to sew in this area here or across this area here, but make sure you reverse your stitches at the start and at the end. Okay, so we've now gone ahead and done that. And I did 1/4 inch seam allowance. These parts here we need to open up, so you should be able to open up here. And you're going to match this side seam to this base seam. I like to open those up a bit. And you're going to bring that edge together. Make sure you open up those seams and pop a clip over that. Then you're just going to clip here and just correct that bit there. And there. You're going to do the same with this one here, so you're going to open that up. Match the two side seams, the side seam to the base seam. Open up those seams first. And then just pop 2 clips either side, making sure the edges match up. My fusible fleece is coming apart here. What I'm going to do is just pop a bit of glue, 505 spray on that, because there's no point of me going back now to fuse that. So just bear with me, I'll do that off camera. Right, I've gone and glued that into place. Right, so where the edges that we've clipped together, we are going to sew 1/4 inch away from that edge, from here to here, reversing our stitches at the start and at the end. I'm going to use the stitch length 2.5. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn over both of those. My fleece is still coming up, don't worry about it. It will stick into place. Right, okay, so the next thing you're going to do is turn this right side facing out. Okay. So we've got the main part of the bag kind of sewn together. You're going to get the flap. And then you're going to find the centre top. So you're just going to fold that in half and find the centre. And just snip 1/8 inch in. Okay. Then the centre, the bag, you're going to find the centre top part of the back. So that's the one without the actual lock. So I'll just basically bring those two seams together. Oh, wrong way. Bring those two seams together like so, and just snip here. Okay. So with the bag right side facing out, and this part pointing up, with the flap right side, so we're going to call this the right side, this is the wrong side. The right side's going to go to the right side of the bag. We're going to match up those two centre marks and clip, and then you're going to clip either side of that centre mark. Now your flap ideally should, and I'll show you what happens, match up those edges as well. Just make sure that's more central. Yeah. Right, so the flap should ideally have, where the two side seams are, 1/8 of an inch. Okay, let me just get all this so there's no bumps. So where my side seam is here to where the edge of the flap is, there is approximately 1/8 of an inch on each side, approximately. What you're going to do is, now if you have a sleeve arm on your sewing machine, get your sleeve arm out. I personally don't. I have a flatbed machine. If you have a sleeve arm, pop the sleeve arm inside and then just base stitch this flap into place. When I say base stitch, use the stitch length number 4. And you're doing it approximately 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Reverse your stitch at the start and at the end so there's no movement of the flap. Now if you're like me who has a flatbed, I have to sew from inside, so I have to sew from this side up. I have to move this out of the way and then sew like this. So it's personal choice, you should know your machine. So that's a stitch length for 1/8 of an inch away, and reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. So I've gone ahead and done that, and then basically you could see your bag coming together like so. Right, so you need to turn it so it's right side facing in. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle with the flap, but you can get through it. Your flap will just stick out like that, that's fine. And you're just going to put that to one side, and we're just going to prep the D-rings. So with wrong side facing up of the D-rings, you're going to need some quarters tape. Okay, quarters roll. I find my smaller one a lot easier on this part. With your quarters roll, you're going to go into the bag here. We're going to work on one of the side seams, so if you can see I'm pushing all this out of the way. Okay, you're going to measure down using the measurement that it says in the book. So I'm going to go, we are now working on this page here. And we're going to measure down the amount that it tells you in the book. Going to peel off the backing off one of the D-rings. And the top edge here is going to match up to the edge of the quarters roll on here. and your D-ring tab needs to go right over that centre seam. So it should look like that. So my centre seam is there. Okay, so while that one's attached, I'm going to go and sew a square all the way around, so as close as I can get to that D-ring. Now if you have a rivet press, or you want to put some rivets into the centre, you can do, but you still need to sew all the way around. I'm personally not going to add any rivets, I like it without the rivets. Make sure you reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. I'm going to use stitch length 3.5. I'm going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and then as close as I can get to that D-ring. And as you can see, I've sewn a rectangle all the way around. Just trim off any loose pieces of thread. Okay, and then you're just going to repeat that same D-ring onto this one side here. Okay, so I've got my D-ring tabs on both sides. I'm going to pop this large one to one side and move over to the two mini clutches. So I've got my two mini clutches and my two mini clutches with their D-rings here as well. Right, so I'm not going to, sorry, we live in the farm industry area, so you might hear combine harvesters and stuff like that. I'm not going to show you how to make the bag itself because it's exactly the same construction as the large one. However, I'm just going to show you the D-ring tabs and D-ring tab placements on this. Right, so the D-rings I've used PU fabric. So this is what I was talking about. You can't use an iron on these. So you're going to have to stick them into place. Now if you've used woven fabric, we're going to press the two long sides into the centre. So we're going to stick these into place. You'll notice these D-ring tabs are smaller than the other D-ring tabs. It's because we don't have to do the two folded bits into the back on the final steps. I'll show you. Okay, so you're going to peel off the backing and bring those two into the centre, to the wrong side. Two long edges into the wrong side and stick. Then you're going to get one of your D-rings and feed that in. So that's my wrong side of my tab to the flatter side of the D-ring. You're going to pop the D-ring in the centre this time and fold. Bring the two wrong sides and two short edges together and clip into place. So it should just look like that. And you're going to do that for both of them. Okay, so we're just going to pop the two main body back pieces to one side, and I'm working on both of these bags at the same time now. And detach the flaps. So, and then using the measurement that is on this page here for the small ones, you're going to measure down from here. you're going to get one of your D-ring tabs, the raw edges. I'm going to go to the raw edge of the bag, and you're going to clip that into place. You're going to do the same for this one as well. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is go to your sewing machine and base stitch both of these into place. So I'm going to use a stitch length 3.5, and I'm going to reverse my stitch at the start and at the end, and I'm going to do it about 1/8 of an inch away. So you should have those attached now and within the seam allowance. Just like before, you're going to pop the main outer front and the back and the front together. Clip down those two sides and across the base. Then you're going to sew 1/4 inch on each of those 3 edges. Reverse your stitch at the start and at the end on all of the straight edges. Then you're going to come back and open up your corners and make your boxy corners. And then you're going to find the centre top of the back, which will be the one without the magnetic snap or the press lock part. Snip into that and then attach the relevant flap to that bag. I'm going to basically just do that off camera and I'll meet you back. Okay, so we're going to go on to making the slip pocket and actually finishing off one of the small bags. I've gone ahead and actually finished off this one completely, but it's the same process for the other one, so I'm just going to show it you once. So you've got your 2 lining body pieces and they're both interfaced on the wrong side. Then you've got your slip pocket and that's interfaced on the wrong side as well. I'm going to work on the slip pocket first. You're going to pop those right sides together, matching up the 2 short edges, and you're just going to finger press that fold. Okay. Pop a few clips in here and here. Right, so the folded part is the top edge of your pocket. I'm just going to pop a turning gap hole section for me to know that I shouldn't sew between these 2 sections. So I'm just going to pop. I'm approximately about 1.5 inches away from the edge, from the 2 side edges, measuring into the centre. So I'm going to start from the folded edge on both sides, reverse my stitch 1/4 inch away, all the way down to here, and then I'm going to pivot and then sew across to here and reverse my stitch here. I'm not going to sew this part here, and then I'm going to start again, reverse my stitch here and sew all the way up to here using 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to use a stitch point 2.5. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewn and stopped on those 2 marks at the bottom. We're going to snip those into those 2 corners at a 45-degree angle, and then I'm just going to trim down these 2 edges here by half the amount of seam allowance. So at this point you want to turn on your iron. Okay, getting a pokey tool, you're going to turn this right side facing out, going through that turning gap at the bottom, and poke out those corners. So you should have 4 corners to poke out. Okay, so that raw edges, those two raw edges, you're going to poke up inside and we're going to press. So your best option is to press the whole thing and then poke them up and making sure that they're neat at the bottom. So those are poked up inside. So this was my folded top edge. We're going to go to the sewing machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge from side to side, reversing our stitches both the start and at the end, and I'm going to use a stitch length 3.5. Okay, so we're going to get this and we're going to fold it in half and just give that a really good finger press. So that's the two shorter edges matching. I'm just going to give that a finger press so we can find the centre. So I've kind of got a centre crease there. I'm just going to put that to one side. You're going to grab one of your lining bag pieces and do exactly the same. Bringing the two diagonal lines together, two diagonal edges together, and finger press that. Okay. Then using the measurement on this page here, measure down from that top edge on the lining. And then match up your centre crease to your centre crease here, and then the top edge of your slip pocket, which is the one that we've just sewn across, should match up to the actual quilter's rule. Then you're going to get some pins and just pop some pins in to hold it into place. Okay, so you're going to go to your sewing machine and top stitch down the two short edges and across the base. We're not going to touch the top. You're going to do it 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Reverse your stitches at the start and at the end. And I'm going to use a stitch length 3.5. Okay, as you can see, I've gone and top stitched down those edges. You're going to get the other main body piece and pop that right side together. When I say main body, I mean lining. Pop those right sides together. Then you're going to clip down the two side edges. Okay, so just like we did on the slip pocket, we need to leave a turning gap on the bottom edge of the lining main body. Now personally, because I've used PU on my body, I like to leave a decent size turning gap. So decent size turning gap is normally when your four fingers and part of your thumb can get in through to that turning gap. So I'm just popping my hand onto the centre and popping two lines either side of my hand there. So that's quite a handy size turning gap. Then I'm just going to pop two clips on this bottom edge here. Right, so just like the main outer bag, we're going to sew down this side here using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, reversing our stitch at the start and at the end. Then you're going to sew here to here, from here to here, reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. We're not going to sew over this part here in the centre. Then you're going to repeat the same process here and then going up here. I'm using a stitch length 2.5 on my sewing machine and 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've gone ahead and sewed down the two sides and those two little pieces here. Now I'm going to open up these two corner cutouts, just like we did on the main outer bags. Oops. Just notice it hasn't sewn properly here, so I'm just going to have to sew it again. That's where, now I've sewn that, my bobbin ran out at one point, so I had to, and I didn't realise I hadn't sewn it. So we're going to open these up, match up the side seam and the bottom seam, and clip. Same with this one as well. And clip. Okay, so you're going to sew across these two seams now 1/4 inch away from the edge. Okay, so you've got your lining bag finished to the point and you've got your turning gap at the bottom on the bottom seam. We're going to pop these together. So this is my main outer bag. I've opened up the flap and this is right side facing out. I'm going to leave this right side facing in. My slip pocket is on this side here. I personally like to pop my slip pocket on the back of the bag, so that'll be the one where the flap is attached to. Then we're going to pop this bag inside this. Now you're probably thinking, oh, it's a tight fit. It is meant to be a tight fit, but it will go in. Key points to match up first is the two side seams, so that's the side seam of your lining to the side seam of your main outer, and clip that into place. Do the same for the opposite side seam. Then what I tend to need to do is just go into the base area where that gap is, just slightly pull the bag that's inside down so you can match up the raw edges around the top. But as you can see, it fits perfectly neat. It's just a bit more snugger, the lining, to stop that bagginess. Okay, so you're going to prep your machine and have your sleeve arm out. Now if you haven't got a sleeve arm, you will have to sew it the way I do, and I will show you that. I will talk you through that in a minute. If you've got a sleeve arm, pop your sleeve arm inside here and then sew all the way around 1/4 inch away from the edge using a stitch length 2.4 or 2.5 depending on your sewing machine. Now if you're like me where you've got a flat bed and you have no sleeve arm, you need to sew from the inside. So you'll be pushing this part out of the way and you'll be sewing 1/4 inch away from the edge using a stitch length 2.5. And then you just have to keep rolling it round like this. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sewed it all the way around. I'm now going to trim back this seam allowance by half. Be careful not to cut into your sewn line that you've just sewn. I'm going the wrong way here because my mind doesn't like that way. Okay, so you've got that turning gap at the bottom. You need to actually now pull out all the bag to the right side, and that's including the lining. Just take your time. Poke out the corners. Right, so I've got that right side facing out. You're going to pinch where the flap is and where the front is and push that lining inside. And then you're going to roll the seam so you can't see any lining showing. And you're going to use some clips and clip that into place. Okay, so if your machine has a sleeve arm, pop the sleeve arm inside and top stitch all the way around, including over the flap area as well, around the back, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, using a stitch length number 4. Now if you are like me, you do not have a sleeve arm, there is 2 methods. You can do what I do is my machine, I raise my machine up, so I kind of like have a sleeve arm, or you could do what I used to do on the old machine, is turn this so it is lining side facing out, and then I top stitch 1/8 of an inch away, going from the inside and rolling this around. So it's personal choice. Okay, so I've gone ahead and top stitch all the way around. The last thing we need to do on the actual bag itself is close off that turning gap. So pull your lining back out, push those raw edges up inside, so like that. Clip along this edge. Now you can either hand sew or machine sew. I'm going to machine sew because I'm lazy. And I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch away, reverse my stitch at the start and at the end, and just you're going to use the stitch length number 3. And then I'll push that back inside. Okay, so that's finished. I've stuffed it up inside. You've got your slip pocket here and your compartment here. They are so simple to make, so easy, and you can use some scrap fabric to make these if you want to. Right, so you got the D-ring here. This is to attach a wrist strap. However, in this video I'm not going to show you how to make the wrist strap because I have made the wrist strap loads of times on this channel. So up in the corner, I don't know which corner it pops up in, there will be an eye. Click on the eye and that will bring up some videos, video links to certain videos within my YouTube where I have personally made a wrist strap. Once you've made your wrist strap, you basically just click that on, pop it on, and you can go out. So that's how to make the 2 small ones. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Now we're going to finish off making the large one. So I've gone one step in, I've done my slip pocket and attached my slip pocket to my lining piece here. So I'm going to pop that to one side. It's the same construction as the 2 small ones. We are now going to work on the inside zip pocket. Now this is optional, you can do 2 slip pockets if you want to, or just have 1 slip pocket. I'm going to show you how to do the zip pocket. Now the zip pocket falls on these pages here. So this is where we're going to start off from. Okay, so I've got my lining body piece, one of my slip pocket stroke zip pocket pieces. Both of those are interfaced on the wrong side. And I've got my zip. So first of all, we need to find the vertical half point on this. So we're going to fold the two long edges into the centre and give this a really good finger press. Okay. Then we're going to bring these two diagonal side edges together, wrong sides together, and give that a good press, finger press. Okay. From the top centre, measure down, and that's following the instructions within the pattern. Okay. Then you're going to get the pocket and pop that right side facing down, and we're going to match up that vertical line to that centre there. So that's the two centres matching up. Pop a few pins in. Okay, so I don't mind saying these measurements next because this is generally every zip pocket is how I make it. So from the top edge of the lining, you're going to measure down 1 inch. My number 6 on my quilter's rule is in the centre where this centre mark is here, where that centre crease is. And we're going to measure in the centre 7-inch line. So I'm going to do 3.5 inches on one side of that half and 3.5 inches on this side of the half. And I'm going to draw a line. Okay, so that's 7-inch line. From that 7-inch line, you need to measure down 3/8 of an inch and draw another 7-inch line. And then what we're going to do is draw 2 small lines either side. Okay, so from that we're going to measure in 1/2 inch on each of those 2 shorter edges. And then we're just going to find the centre of that box in the middle. Right, so from the centre of that box, we're going to go from here to here, and we're going to draw 2 triangles. Okay, so you should have something that looks drawn like that. The next thing you're going to do is use a stitch length 2.5 on your sewing machine, and you need to reverse your stitch at the start and at the end, and you're going to sew all the way around on the outer edge. We're not going to touch any of those lines in the centre. So let me just show you close up. So you're going to sew all the way around on the outer edge drawn line, and then I'll meet you back. So remove those pins. Okay, so I've sewn on the outer edge lines. Now in that centre, I'm going to fold this in half, and just that centre drawn line, I'm just going to snip into this, if I can. There you go. Snip into it so I have like a hole starting. Get my scissors and cut to where the point of the triangle starts on both sides. And then I like to use some pointy scissors. So from the point of the triangle to there, we're going to snip, and you're going to get as close as you can to the sewn line, but not cut through that sewn line. So it should look like that. We're going to do it for the other side. Okay, then you're going to do it for this one as well. Okay, so once we've done that, you should have 2 little triangle cutouts at the end and your 2 large seam allowances. You're going to just finger press here and here, and then you're going to finger press just this side here. We're going to pass this lining through to the wrong side of the body lining piece, and you're going to bring all that all the way through. I'm going to work from the wrong side. I personally like to roll and just give it a finger crease to help on the 2 long edges. Right, so flip that over. Working from this side, you're going to press this. You should not have any creases whatsoever. If you've got any creases on this side, you need to push this back through, and when we snipped into the corners, you need to snip a bit more into the corners. If you have creases on this side, really it doesn't matter. This is the lining, this is the pocket lining, no one sees this. So we're just going to work from this. I'm now going to give this a really good press because I've got no creases in those corners. Okay, so that's pressed really neat. I'm going to flip this over so it's the pocket lining facing up, and as you can see I've got creases. I'm not actually bothered because it's in the lining. So you're going to get some quarters tape and run quarters tape on the 2 edges of the letterbox hole. Peel off the backing tape. Okay, so you're going to get your zip with the zip right side facing up. That's so you can see the zip pull and you can see the zip. And then you're going to get what you've just put some tape on, and that tape side is going to go over onto the right side of the zip, and we're going to line up that zip. Now it's hit and miss if you get it straight. Okay, so you want the zip coil in the centre and straight. Now you're probably wondering why I've got an overhang here. That's fine, I like that overhang so I know this isn't anywhere near where I'm sewing. So if you're like me, a bit cautious, where you don't want no metal going underneath, have a longer zip so it overhangs. Now using a stitch length number 3.5, we're going to top stitch all the way around 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here, and that's all the way around. You will need to probably move this zip out the way into the centre when you get close by it. Okay, and as you probably just saw, the metal bits that start off the zip of the number 3 zip is right in that box. It's not anywhere where I'm going to be sewing. Okay, so I've sewn all the way around. First thing I'm going to do is trim back this zip. So I'm pulling the lining pocket piece out the way when I do this. Okay. Gonna flip this so the pocket lining's right side facing up. Bring the 2 short edges together and give that a really good finger press. Okay. So you're going to peel back the lining, zip pocket lining away from the main body piece. You're just going to pin here and here. So we're not pinning the actual body piece itself, and we're just going to be pinning the lining piece. Oops. Then we're just going to pin down the two edges, not anywhere near the lining of the body. Okay, so working from this side, when you're at your sewing machine, just pop your zip pull into the centre as well. When you're at the sewing machine, you're just going to bend this back and you're just going to sew on the pocket lining edges. So you're going to do 1/4 inch away from the edge, reverse your stitch at the start, and then when you come to the corner, put your needle down, flip this so you can see this side, and then you're going to do the same with this one. Make sure you're 1/4 inch away. I'll just pop that right. Make sure you're 1/4 inch away from the pocket lining edge, and use a stitch length number 3. Okay, so you will have your pocket attached, and it's a working pocket, nothing can fall out. Okay, so I'm not going to show you how to do the lining again of the bag, but you're going to pop those right sides together, you're going to clip down the two sides, you're going to leave a decent turning gap of between your forefingers and thumb, so draw 2 lines there, reverse your stitches at the start and at the end of every sewn line, then open up the corners and make those boxy corners. Then you're going to basically do what we did before, pop this into there, obviously not when it's closed. You're going to pop that inside, then sew all the way around, cut away the excess, and then you're going to roll the seams, bring it right side facing out, roll the seams, and then basically top stitch all the way around. I'll now show you the finished results. And then you have one finished. It isn't magic, honest. I just thought I'd play a bit of trickery there. That's if it's worked. Right, so you've got it finished. Completely finished. I've given it a press from the inside before I turned it. Also, I like to use a hairdryer sometimes to if I'm using PU, so I warm the outside up and then just roll the seams like I am rolling here, just to make sure they're pointing out nice and neat. So the last thing to do is the shoulder strap, and we're going to go ahead and do that because I haven't done that many times on my channel. So put that to one side. Right, so you've got your two pieces. You've got your top piece and your bottom piece. The bottom piece you will have interfaced, and the top piece you won't have interfaced. I'm using a PU. Now if you are using a woven fabric, go ahead and please interface the top layer of the strap. Obviously it's a must. You just need a bit of body in it. Mine's got enough body in mine. The underlay one has actually got interfacing, and my recommendation is to use a woven fabric. So the first thing we're going to do is bring the two long edges into the centre on the wrong side and press all the way along. I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so I've actually pressed the two long edges into the centre. Just going to put this iron out of the way so we can see the whole strip. Okay, so you got that. We're just going to pop that to one side. We're just going to work on this. Now if you have used a woven fabric, go ahead and do exactly the same. Bring the two long edges into the centre on the wrong side and give it a good press. We can't do that with this because it's PU. Now my PU has a mild felt backing, and I'm thinking of getting this into stock. It's actually the first time me using it, and I'm finding that it's actually relevantly very easy to sew. So this is 2 inches wide. We need to find the centre, so that's 1 inch. And we're just going to basically draw a centre line. Okay. Either side of that line we're going to run quilter's tape. Just have some wonder clips ready. You're going to peel off the backing off the one side first. And then you're going to bring that edge into the centre and stick down. Then I'm just going to flip this round and repeat the same. So you should be left with an inch wide strip with the two raw edges into the wrong side and into the centre thereabouts. Okay, so you're going to run quilter's tape where those two centres meet, two edges meet, and you're going to run it from edge to edge. You're going to peel off that backing tape. Then you're going to get this. Now you're going to have the wrong side facing onto the wrong side of this strap piece here. And you'll notice that there will be about 1/4 inch overhang or extra of this either end. So, just going to pop that there. And we're sticking this in the centre. So you should have a bit of strap either side of this one that I'm sticking down. So it should have, that's not a very good overhang. Try and get it in the centre. That's fair. So you should have overhang each side of strap. Oh, there you go. And you should have that approximately all the way along. So you're going to go ahead and top stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge on both long edges. Then you're going to top stitch 1/8 inch away on both edges, and I'll meet you back. So I've top stitched 2 rows either side, 1/4 inch away from the edge and 1/8 inch away. I used a stitch length number 4 on all 4 sewn lines. Now the final things you need to do is just get your 2 swirl clasps, feed them on either shorter end, and the swirl clasps, if you notice, are on the right side. That's the top layer. You're going to flip this over, and approximately about 1.5 inches away or 1/3 inch away, depending on how you feel, you're going to fold that over. Then you're going to fold that under by 1/2 inch, like so. So it should be rolled, as you can see. And you're just going to pop a clip and repeat the same process on this end. Okay, you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to top stitch along here, reverse your stitch at the start and at the end, and make sure you're catching that roll area. Okay, so you have your strap, and now it's just time to connect it to the bag. Okay, so you're just going to connect it to the bag, like so. And there you've got your over the shoulder strap. And just like that, you will have 3 bags finished. And ta-da! No, it doesn't work like that. If Magic Cut does make your bags faster, that'd be great. Right, okay, so that's all the bags complete. Like I said, I haven't showed the wrist straps in this tutorial because if you click on the eye link, I don't know which corner it is, whichever eye link is, click on that eye link and basically that will bring up a few videos that you can click onto, which will teach you how to make either a woven strap or a PU wrist strap, because there's 2 different types and 2 ways of making it. If you have liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel yet. The general gist. Here is the pattern. It's called the Queeny set. Now I know I'm going to get asked why the Queeny. Right, so in the UK the Queen always has a handbag when she goes out of the palace or wherever she's living, and the style of bag I always see on the Queen is an A-line bag. So I've done an A-line bag and it's got a fancy flap on it. So obviously I've done a fancy flap, and it's always a short, delicate shoulder bag, or one that's just got a really small handle. I've never seen her wear anything other than the 2 style of bags that I've just described. But me being me, I went a bit further and designed 2 smaller versions because I wanted you to learn some new different ways of installing clasps, and maybe you could bring them over to this. So like so this curve here, if you're very good, you can get the pattern piece and make it into a triangle. Then you can add one of these corner protectors on the bottom and finish it off with a magnetic snap. Or you can like so in my shop, if it was a straight finish flap, there is some straight bar flap connectors, which is a bit like this but on the straight, and you can add a magnetic snap. This pattern is so you can have a play, but also very beginner friendly. I'm Becky Alexander Frost, and thank you ever so much for joining me, and I'll see you all soon on a new video. See you soon. Bye. Bye.